Hey friends, welcome back to the YouTube channel. For those of you who are new here, my name is Oleg and this is Mr. Bond. In today's video, we're gonna do a full review of this watch right here, Timex Q. When this watch just came out, the hype behind it was high and the availability was low. It was selling on the resale market for almost double the retail. In my opinion, way too high. Now the hype kind of came down and the watch is much more available. So I looked on Timex website. In Canadian dollars, it's 230 Canadian dollars, or in US, it's 165, and it's available. Plus they added some more different color combinations. This original color combination is still my favorite. So now that the watch is available, should you buy one? Well, let's get into that. But before we do, I want to say a huge thank you to a local subscriber, David, who lent me this watch for the review. So if you don't mind, say thank you in the comment section. Now, let's get started with the review. Let's begin with the dimensions of the watch. It has a diameter of 38 millimeters, so from this point to this point. However, that's excluding the crown. It's 44.5 millimeters from one lug to another, so from this point to this point. It has a lug width of 18 millimeters. However, it's slightly deceiving because of the way this bracelet is designed. So the lug width is 18 millimeters. However, the widest points on the bracelet are 21.5 millimeters apart. And then the bracelet kind of tapers in closer to the clasp. And it's also 12.2 millimeters thick, including the domed crystal. Here's what the watch looks like on my 7.5 inches or just under 20 centimeters wrist. For the most part, I really like how this watch fits. Even though it has a diameter of 38 millimeters, I think this one actually wears a little larger. I'm not entirely sure why it wears larger because it has a pretty short lug to lug distance. And the overall size of it is not too big. It's not a very thick watch, but to me it appears closer to 40 millimeters than 38 millimeters. Overall, really like the fit of this watch, except for one thing. This bracelet is not the most comfortable bracelet to wear, but we're gonna talk about this bracelet in a little while. It's also super light, weighing only 90 grams. For a better size comparison, here's the watch next to a Seiko SNK. The Seiko is 37 millimeters. Timex is 38 millimeters, and you can see that the Timex does look larger. To give you another size comparison, here's the watch next to a Yama Maxi Dial Superman Heritage watch. The Yama watch is 40 millimeters in diameter, Timex again 38 millimeters, and you can see it looks fairly close in size to Yama. So as I said, it does look larger. Now, while we have Yama here, let's actually talk about the styling of this watch, because this watch was made popular by its styling. The finishes on the watch are nothing special. It's just done with the polished finish throughout the case, so high polish finish on the sides of the case, on the top of the lugs, and on the crown. The finishes are okay, but nothing special, nothing exceptional. Clearly, the vintage styling of this watch is what attracts a lot of people to it. Now, there are a couple of ways to go about making a vintage-inspired watch. You could make something like this Yama Superman Heritage, where you have a vintage-inspired watch with modern specs. It has a sapphire crystal, it has a ceramic bezel, it has nicer finish, it has 200 meters of water resistance, and overall it just feels nice and solid in your hands. It looks like a vintage watch that was made in 2020. Then you look at something like the Seiko Q, and you can tell that it's a vintage inspired watch that could have been made in 1980s and was just kept in a box until now. So some people will like it, some people don't like that, because we have all this new technology available to us now. Yet, Timex still decided to go with a acrylic crystal or the plastic crystal. It's a nice domed crystal and gives great distortion angles. However, of course, it's not as durable as a sapphire crystal. But that's fine, a lot of people prefer acrylic crystals, and also they are very easy to buff out any scratches from. It also has aluminum bezel insert. It's a bidirectional bezel. It's friction resistant, so it doesn't have any clicking in it. I wish it had slightly more resistance. As it is right now, it's quite easy to turn, although there isn't much of a grip on this bezel. So if you look at it from the side profile, you can see that it stands out slightly, kind of looks like a UFO from the side, but the bezel itself is not very thick, so there isn't much to grab onto. Luckily, the bezel is fairly easy to turn. This is a GMT style bezel, so I don't know how often you'd be turning it. Anyways, A couple of other things that are disappointing to me about this watch, and again that circles back to that vintage inspired aesthetic, but making it look like a vintage watch in 2020, meaning using vintage technology, vintage finishes, vintage materials, but using them in 2020, is the fact that the crown is not signed. We have this crown at the 3 o'clock position. It's not signed with the Timex logo. Kind of disappointing. Another part that is disappointing is this dark circle around the bezel that looks like plastic. So they didn't even bother to put in a stainless steel bezel. It looks like it's a plastic bezel with the aluminum bezel insert, and looks like these ridges here are made out of stainless steel. Maybe not, but the look of that plastic ring does not inspire a lot of confidence, and you can see that some corners were cut. When this watch just came out, it became very popular instantly thanks to social media in large part. A lot of people were looking for these watches, and they were selling on a resale market at a huge premium, sometimes double the retail price. Now the hype kind of died down and the watches became more available. So now it's May 2020. You can find these watches from Timex website themselves. They are $165 or about 230 Canadian dollars. For $165, it's not an awful watch. It has a lot of heritage, of course, comes from Timex, and I think that's why a lot of things are forgiven about this watch. That logo on the dial, Timex. If it came from an unknown brand, I think a lot of watch enthusiasts would have torn it apart. Because it comes from Timex, it has some heritage, and the styling of it is pretty cool, pretty retro. It gets a pass about a lot of things. First of all, it's just a quartz movement watch with the date functionality. It does not have a GMT hand, although this does look like a GMT watch, and you'd have to use the GMT bezel to time the second time zone. A bit deceiving if you ask me. Why not put a GMT movement? It's a quartz movement anyways, might as well put one with the GMT function. It's a printed dial with painted on hour indices, and the open rail track looks pretty good. I like the color of this lume, or of the indices, and the color on the hands. It looks like an aged or patinaed lume. Really well done. I think that contributes to the look of this watch by quite a bit. It looks like a vintage watch because of that detail. So I think they did a great job with that. I think they also did a great job with the red seconds hand as far as the design goes. I think that looks great. Not too much writing, just Timex Q by the 12 o'clock position and quartz written closer to the 6 o'clock position. That's it. Here's what the lume on the Timex Q looks like. It's alright. It's not very bright if I'm being honest, but it will get the job done for up to half an hour. I think past an hour mark, this lume is fairly difficult to read. I think that's forgivable for the most part, since this isn't really a diver watch anyways. A couple of other details that you should know about the watch. First of all, the crown. It's not a screw down crown, although in my initial impressions video, I did that video for Instagram. You can check it out. I'll leave a link in the description below. I said that the crown is screw down. It was my mistake. It's not in fact a screw down crown. It's a simple push-pull style crown. So first position, you change the date. Second position, that's to change the time, and you can see the seconds hand stops sticking, and you push it into place, starts sticking again. 50 meters of water resistance on this watch, and the case back looks like so. It's held in place with these 4 screws, so it's not a screw down case back. It has this opening here, that's to unscrew and change the battery. So you don't have to take out the whole case back to change the battery. All you will do is just use a screwdriver or another battery, open this little hatch, change the battery, and screw it in place. Pretty good design. Now let's talk about this bracelet, because this bracelet is a big point of controversy, and to me is a positive and negative. First of all, the design of the bracelet is great. I really like this aesthetic. I think it looks great. I don't know what you even call this bracelet, something like a snake skin or something like that. Kind of reminds me of that aesthetic. Looks really good. As I mentioned, the lug width is 18 millimeters. However, the bracelet kind of expands and fits the outline of the case perfectly. The shape of this case is also very retro, so you need a retro type of bracelet. All of that looks great. It has a simple clasp with the Timex logo on it, and to close it or to open it, you just hook it in place and you close this clasp. Pretty good, pretty easy. It conforms to the wrist really well and makes the watch sit flush on your wrist, so it doesn't protrude, doesn't have weird gaps. So what is the problem? Why is this bracelet also a negative? Well, because this bracelet will give you free waxing anytime you wear it. My goodness, I don't have very hairy wrists, and this watch kept on pulling hairs pretty much every half an hour or so. It was like clockwork. No pun intended. It's pretty insane. I don't know how you would wear this bracelet for it not to pull your hairs. Maybe if you wear it really tightly around your wrist. I tried that and that seemed to help a little bit. But then every time the watch would shift on my wrist, it would pull out another one of my hairs. Pretty uncomfortable. And actually the owner of this watch said that he had to change the bracelet for that exact reason. So he actually bought an aftermarket bracelet that he wears this watch on. Alright, so that was the review of Timex Q. What do I think about the watch? I really like it. A watch like this you're not really buying for the specs because the specs are quite poor. For $165 US, even though it's not that expensive, you're still getting just a quartz watch with the acrylic crystal and below average finishes. What it lacks in specs, it makes up for in looks. I really like the color combination of this watch, the blue dial, the patinaed lume, the Pepsi bezel, and the overall vintage aesthetic of this watch is very attractive. I love vintage watches, I love vintage inspired watches, so this one here aligns with my preferences really well. If you're buying one of these watches, just don't expect too much in terms of the quality of the finishes and the specs, but in terms of looks, this watch, for me at least, gets 10 out of 10. I appreciate you watching this video until the end. Please give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the YouTube channel, we upload new videos every week, and leave a comment in the comment section below. Let me know what you think about this Timex Q and other color combinations of this watch. By the way, today on my wrist, I'm wearing my Rolex Datejust. I did a full review of this watch. That video can be found on the YouTube channel. I will also leave it linked in the description below. Also in the description below, there are two other links. The first link is a secret link. Have a look if you're curious. The second link is a link to bondnativestrap.com if you're looking for a great quality native strap and want to support this YouTube channel at the same time. Buying one of these native straps is a great way to do so. Thank you for watching. Thank you, David, for lending this watch in for the review. I hope you liked it. I hope you had fun, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye. Okay. One at a time. That's the dealio. Oh, you're drooling all over my pants. Okay.